Welcome everyone to the 204th weekly MLP critiques. I don't know what we are anymore.
MLPDS critique live stream.
Thank you.
We're just here. We exist now. That's all we are. People show up. I don't know why, but we exist.
Are we human? Or are we
Or are we
dancers?
Oh my god.
So with that, let's kick this off. As you can hear, we got the ever fluffy Ellie Claw.
Hello.
And then there's an even fluffier Fluffy's Eye.
It's in the name.
It can't be that.
I just showered, so I'm extra fluffy.
Oh my gosh. And then, hidden in the background is a pixie nope. Nop.
Morning, mates.
Battling spiders and snakes. And how's the fires going? Are those dealt with?
Yeah, not quite. Down south, still pretty heavy, but no, we'll get there.
I guess the mega disease and Trump, took over the news cycle for our non-Australians.
Yeah, always something new.
All right, well, let's kick off these pictures with new horses to critique. So the first one up is by Furry Cat 24. Drew a scene from Followed Equestria with Pinkie Pie and Golden Blood.
I was wondering what this is from. It clearly looked like a story.
All right, they have no comments or questions.
Don't we love that?
Pro tip, next time you post, ask questions. In particular, or asking particular questions will get more pointed answers, and we just aren't sort of blindly, going towards the dark, hoping to find something wrong with it. If you're like, hey, I need help with my shading, especially over on the side of his face. Help me with this, I don't know what my problem was. Or be like, hey, I don't like what I did with backgrounds. What's up? Help, please. Things like that.
And then we can help with things.
Then we can help the things. So yeah, let's just get to work here. Is my pen working? My pen's working.
That's step one for art.
What's going on with the side, with this ear shadow? So we got a light coming from the side, like, yo, ho. Yeah, like this, sort of that direction. So actually we should be getting a bit of light on the face. I know it's done more for dramatic flair to, cast that shadow across the face. But I think changing the lighting to overhead would definitely help with that a lot. If we're to take the vast majority of the light and go whoop down down here, we can leave the shadow up here on that ear, and we're going to let it cast a bit of a shadow down behind them, and then the rest of the shading looks good for that angle, and we'll just take Pinkie's and slightly rotate hers so the top of her ears are catching it, a bit of the bottom of this area over here, and then her back would also be grabbing that light, and then with the shadow you'd be a little more accurate to what you have. That's just going to help keep that same light direction. I know there's probably multiple sources of light because if I recall, this is in her office when she's, rocking the party time mentals.
You've read this story?
Yeah, it's Followed Equestria. Like the most rad fanfic of all time.
But there's so much of it.
They have 4 printings of it now, of hardcover. Yeah. It's a ridiculous tome.
I've read like one book in my life.
That's sad.
I have a short attention span, okay?
Right.
You shouldn't chew books, Ali. You should really just read them.
But they're high in fiber.
Stop me.
Trying to make a Pinkie joke right there.
Audiobooks are where it's at. I'm loving them.
Yeah, I've just started doing that with the Warriors series because my friend has always nagged me to read them. Anyway.
Anywho, horses. That's what I think will help your lighting quite a bit. And then you can refocus it a bit on the ground to actually cast their shadows, depending on how many light sources. If you're going for multiple light sources, give up on casting a shadow on all of them, because honestly, that's just such a pain in the butt. just do the blob that you basically have, where it's sort of fuzzy blob hanging around, and then you can do the darker shadow under the center of them, where no light shall ever venture. That's all I think you really need to adjust for that. Your pony shapes are pretty good. Pinky's definitely in that, like, she's sort of hunching and curling up, but it makes sense for her. No clue what Blue Blood's doing. He's, being his destroyed self in that story. The corner of the room isn't making sense to me. Is it supposed to be a curved hallway, like a curved wall? Because if it is, cool. Otherwise, a line to indicate we have a wall will help with that. Although I do see your the baseboard has curved too, so maybe it is supposed to be a curved room.
I mean, it could be one of those like crazy, fisheye lens perspectives, which is very hard. But I do agree with Gallon in our chat here saying the perspective does feel off. Like if there was no background, I feel like the ponies fit well, but the background doesn't fit with the perspective of the ponies right now. So I think that's something to think about for your next piece. Really, like, look up how to draw perspective grids, just kind of get an idea of how it all fits together.
Perspective grids. Actually, I think we have a guide on our channel, or on our subreddit, about perspective grids. You might want to check that out. It'll be on our sideboard. Look under beginner guides or exterior guides. I think both have one about it.
I believe so. One of these days we need to go through and like add some more, refresh them. I remember some were like gone, so they need replacements.
Yeah. I would also, looking at it, I'd completely change the angle of the table. Right now, it's like turned away.
About that in my head.
Just follow your baseboard that you did with the other wall and the door, and you'll have a pretty good indication of what angle that needs to go. Also, bigger.
Since this is based off of Fallout Crusher, which is based off of Fallout, I can say, imagine like when you're playing the Bethesda games and you like spawn an object and it's at like a weird angle cutting through the floor. That's what the table is doing. It's like no clipping through the floor. It's a Bethesda world, so it makes sense. It's practically canon.
Coolio. Gallon, in response to your question about us seeing the Fluttershy, I totally looked at the Fluttershy. She's totally adorable, and I agree with the critique that was provided. It is definitely good. Are you looking for critique on that one, or are you looking for critique on the marble pie? Yes, that was the horse's name. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Sounds good.
Which we can actually just go to Gallons, because we play favorites.
If you're here, then you get favorited.
I don't know why, but I'm like, if you're here, you're family. Let's get unlimited breadsticks.
Family. We get breadsticks?
Breadsticks.
That's the Olive Garden. That's their like, if you're here, you're family.
I've never been to an Olive Garden.
I haven't either.
Well,
but
it's an American thing, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Do those play like before Netflix video?
You know what Annie likes.
So do you got?
They would like the marble, yeah.
Yeah. You got any questions in particular about this wanting to be hugged horse? Well, actually, it's marble, so probably not wanting to be hugged.
Wanting to have respected personal space.
Yeah.
Though I do super want to just give her kindness. It's like she needs
While
a-
you're
needs
thinking
a
of
friend.
questions, I'm just like, I love the atmosphere of this piece. The
Yeah.
fireflies and like the fog, and it has
All the
really good
simple
depth
things,
to it.
like the gradient in the background is just like a simple touch, but it like works so well, and the trees are blended into it so well. Like, oh,
It
so good.
really
So
does
good
depth
boy.
good.
I think
That
Well,
big
like
tree to
this
the
too.
left of the horse is just like the best. I love it,
Mm.
and I love how the trees get like simply in the background as
Yeah,
well. It's a really
yeah.
nice
It's
style.
a very simplistic touch, but I think it works so well with this because it draws attention towards the main focus, which is the pony in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like a
portions.
lovely outline around her just with the trees and the highlighted part. Like the ground sort of doesn't assist that, but otherwise we get a nice sort of halo around the character pointing our eyes towards her.
I think you've just given her like way too much of a shoulder. Um, unless if you're going for more of an anthro style, but if you're sticking with more of an MLP style like your Fluttershy, definitely reduce that shoulder a bit because you've pushed it out way in front and pulled it up. Beyond that, the proportions are great. Like it looks super adorable. The fact that you've shown us the back hip is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you've done it, and even though we don't see any indication of the other foot, it makes sense for how her hip's sitting because we're going to be ending a leg like there, sort of thing. So I'm looking at the way you've highlighted the hair, and I think personally you've overdone it. I think you've gone too far on the highlighting, just based on how little catch lights are hanging around the rest of her and how the trees look. There's some trees that are getting some nice light just hitting it from the sides or from an angle up here and here, like that. But then you have her hair going all the way down as though the light's coming from this direction instead. I think how you should have approached that is the back of her hair is getting most of that highlighting, and it's going to be subtle at best considering it's a very dark environment with fog hanging around, so you're actually going to be getting a lot of occlusion through that light, meaning most of your light is actually a blended plane. It's you're getting lit up from all sides. Then you can just, a little touch on the top of, just follow just the lightest, gentlest touch across the spine. Just give it that little pop and across that back of the hip. Take most of it away from the tail, give it to the side there. Maybe just some across there. And I think that's going to give more or agree more with the direction of where the light's coming from for all the background. Good picture though.
It's probably just me, but it feels like there's a lot of hair in front of her face, and I'm not sure whether it's maybe just a little bit too much.
I think I agree because I think I can understand if she was facing more front. I know in the show she has a lot of hair covering her face, but we almost have a side view here, so I feel like it wouldn't be covering her snout. And her hair is flat. It's more of a flat, so it's almost like you've taken a front-facing hairdo but put it on her side, like a side view.
I can see that. Yeah.
But I know in the show she's really like behind her hair a lot, so I think it's just a matter of
Conceptually,
being
it makes sense.
too much, like you want it flowing over her face, not necessarily poofing over her face.
But it's still like painted absolutely brilliantly, and I love it.
Maybe it would be interesting if there's a bit more. Like we've added this fog on the ground, and it's sort of all behind her. It ends at her, which sort of makes sense for a light fog, and that's what I'm seeing. But can we maybe adding a little bit more to the ground might be beneficial to here? Even just a few rocks in that, just to just to sort of break up the monotonous of the dark color. I know you got a bunch of fireflies here, but like, I don't know. Because I know you don't want to take away from the subject of marble pie.
Yeah, I feel that. It's almost like you could even add some fog maybe in the foreground, because there's some distance between her and us. So there could be maybe like in the corners rolling down on either side of her. Just something to build it a little more, have it connect from front to back, because where she is, it's cleared, but it could be like around her too.
My best suggestion for figuring out ground a bit more is study off a few artists that really, really do a good job of backgrounds and sceneries. If you go, I mean, look at all of Miyazaki's stuff, just utterly gorgeous. And you take that and then you tone it down a whole bunch, because who wants to spend 2 months drawing a picture? But yeah, it's a great example of a whole lot of texture and detail thrown. I can't link you directly to Miyazaki, like, it's videos, all of Studio Ghibli.
Yeah. Someone I really like, and I guess it's just personal, their name's Clockbirds. They have a YouTube channel and they do speed paints, and it's like a really nice painterly style. I don't know, I like them, and I like how they paint, and I just see you're going in a very painterly direction anymore, so maybe you'll glean something from what they do. Possibly. Yeah. More artists can't hurt. Only if you like it.
Here, just sending you a direct YouTube or Google link. I know it's a gross thing to do, but Spirited Away scenery is a great example of detail without too much going on. Like, if you're to look at the grass one that I hope is what's linked, it's got a lot of texture in it just through slight manipulations of the color. And then around certain objects, they'll draw some grass like you have. So gorgeous. And then, like, their newer one, Ariadne, is even more gorgeous. You stare at it going, how? Why? Who? What? And it's just endless gorgeousness. The story was crud, but oh my god, it was so pretty.
It's just the borrowers.
It is just the borrowers. You got any more questions for us there, Gallon? Oh, master of the cookies.
Ooh, I have a thought. It's not necessarily to do with proportion or anatomy or anything, but character interaction. She's kind of staring at nothing, but she has this like nifty little ladybug on her hoof there. Maybe she could have a little more interaction. Like, why is there a ladybug there? You know, it's just kind of there.
I was zoomed out, so I thought it was like an injury at first. I didn't realize that was a ladybug.
But yeah, have that interaction. You know, have that like something going on with what's happening. Otherwise, she's just sitting and staring
She's
at nothing.
just looking towards the viewer-ish, but like not directly at the viewer, just like over our shoulder, if you want. It's like almost like she's addressing us, but just not pointing to it. But it's like, why is she not looking at this already?
Gallon, that's homework for you. Watch at
Ladybug.
least one Studio Ghibli movie this week. I have good
It's
news.
so
It's all
good.
coming to Netflix. All of it.
Really? Oh
Yeah.
my god. It's all so good.
But not US Netflix or Canadian, I don't think.
No, it's coming to the US one, not coming to Canada.
So it's probably not coming to UK either.
Gallon, I got... Okay, so here's the cool thing about doing painterly stuff. Even if you merge the layers, you can go back in, start fresh, paint a white eye, just like a new layer on top of everything, and you can make it match. Yeah, you can just redo the eye. That's one of the beautiful things about digital art is you can... Even traditional art, you get the right kind of white paint. You can just go over it. Like, don't let it stop you. If it's one
if you
thing,
get the right kind of
little
deal
thing,
with the devil.
you rip off a piece of paper, tape it on top. It's fine.
Why is there so much masking tape over your painting? Don't ask questions!
It looks good now. Just stop, okay?
Is this a jar of Tipex in the bin?
But yeah, if it's some feel free to go in and easily fix stuff. Like I mean, it might not be easy, but like little fixes that can make all the difference. You know.
I think you did the eye pretty well, but you can always do it well again.
Exactly. You did it once, you can do it again. You can do it 10,000 times.
Your composition is fine. You've framed
Yeah,
your
I
character.
super love the composition. What you
Yeah.
could do to frame her even more potentially, I don't know though, because I kind of like this because her body sort of disappears into the ground, but it sort of makes her sort of blending into the environment a little bit, but then her head is still quite well framed, which is quite nice considering like her and how easily she matches into the background. You could do maybe like sort of a, you know, when you have sort of like a, I don't have my tablet pen on hand, but you know when you have like on the ocean, there's sort of like the moonlight ripple, you could sort of do that like a reflection in the, well, not a reflection, but you know, light in the grass kind of thing, because you've got this lighter middle over here, so you could do sort of a slight fade where she is in this sort of cone, and that could just maybe bring her out a little bit better. But that's the only thing that I could think of, and it's something to try. Maybe I don't know if it will actually work or not. It's up to you to decide if it looks nice.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I really like composition. Like I said earlier, maybe think about doing something more in the foreground to really help. Like I know you have this tree right here, but maybe have something else poking in on the other side. Just kind of like balance the foreground, midground, and background a bit. Because like I said, you only have that one element in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, this is nitpick stuff. Like it's really
Yeah,
good.
it's
You've
very
improved
nitpicky because
greatly from last competition. we
it's
saw.
outweighed so strongly by everything we love about the picture.
Mm-hmm. You're like at that level where it's like these little things can try and do an experiment.
Always keep it up, buddy. Do you have any other questions before we move on? Values. Try to balance and make sure my values between the foreground and background. And one, two, no, there's anything wrong there. Yeah, just sort of what I talked about with her blending in, like the tone, her tones and values are very similar to the background. So, and obviously it might be tricky because she's lighter in the background. So if you start lightening around her, you'll probably have to lighten her even more, lighten the background even more. But it's sort of it goes in contrast. You've got like her head against the lighter horizon. Above the horizon is obviously she's the darker thing, as well as the trees. But then when it comes to the ground, in the foreground, she's the lighter thing. So it's sort of it's just taking stuff like that into account, and it isn't off-putting because it's like a gradual blend, and it isn't like a sudden cut off where like it was sort of like a yin yang thing where it's like straight white to black and black on white. So it feels a lot less like it doesn't sort of put you off. It blends nicely. So it's just a case of experimenting, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's just difficult because she's a gray horse and
Mhm.
her color is very on tone with everything. Something you could do is shift the color of the background itself to have like a complementary gray. Like she's a cool gray and the background could be
Mhm.
a warm gray, or mix, or vice versa. You can make her warm and the
Yeah.
background cold.
Trying to mix values is something that I've struggled with a lot in pictures of different characters, but yeah, like putting a little bit of different, like you think of sort of like colors and stuff, and like that's one thing, and it is important to try and get the tones as good as you can get them on their own. But after that, you can use colors, and yeah, you can have like slightly colored tinted grays, which all just they're gray, but they feel different, and it's a very subtle difference, so it can work very nicely.
And the only other thing is you could give her a halo. Like there's that soft halo you could give her from the fog itself. In like
Especially because
doesn't
of
have
the
to be
back,
her
the
entire
light's coming
body.
from the back.
The upper half of her body could have like a nice glow going up into her head where she gets that mane happen. Because I'm fine with her butt fading in. Like that's fine.
Yeah,
honestly.
the halo can like fade as it goes down because it's getting further away from the light source.
And not like an angel's halo, like a light glow behind her.
Yeah. You imagine
like
soft
room lighting kind of stuff.
Imagine something soft and fluffy with a light behind it.
Yeah, since there's no harsh lights here, it'll all be soft.
Mhm. soft and pink. Otherwise, yeah, I'm glad we could help. I hope we did anyway. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for always sharing your art. Like seriously, I just like when you first came to the MLPDS and now it's just like mind blowing.
Astonishing.
Like leaps and bounds. I just love seeing artists that like improve. I just love it.
Hell yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm still
definitely.
here. I just love seeing people improve. It's so cool.
It's always so fascinating. I love seeing people. It's like a year ago or like 4 years ago, or whatever. I did this, and then like here's me now, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Did you create the summoning circle and do the sacrifice for the to get
Did
the
Bob
art
Ross
skills?
show up? Did you wear the afro of Bob Ross?
Chop up a bunch of good art, snort it, you know.
Oh my gosh. Lost some
Oh,
cookies
no.
along the way.
Cookie sacrifices. I hear they're pretty powerful.
I've been eating biscuits this whole time we've been doing this. Cookies have to be sacrificed for art.
Biscuit.
And sometimes custard creams.
All right, let's go on to the next picture.
Okie pokey. We just going up, left.
Yeah,
right?
just going up.
All right.
Up, down, down, left, right, right.
Extra life.
This is posted. That's. Never mind. This is posted by the Real Eagle Gamer. Yes, that's their name. The Real Eagle Gamer. Just drew this because why not? Fluttershy is Doolittle.
I mean, it's pretty perfect fit.
Yeah. We're talking like Dr. Doolittle or.
Yeah, that's my guess.
I think so.
And they have no comments beyond they're wondering if it's okay to post this on other subreddits. Totally is. Post away!
We do not own your art.
Oh, I do. Yeah, there's there's an agreement you sign when you post anything that I get all rights. No.
Listen, there's a thing that all artists should watch out for in the furry fandom. There's literally a Discord that if you post your art to their Discord, they've made it so it's a whole cultish thing. Just watch out where you post your art. Like
That is
some people will try
crazy.
to-
How can
It is absolutely crazy. It was disturbing to see. They're like, we have the right to post your art to our Twitter now because you posted it in our Discord, blah 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 blah. And because you've joined and signed the contract, we own blah blah. It's crazy. Just be
I mean,
careful out
don't join a Discord where you have to sign a contract for one thing.
there. Yeah.
That could be a good first step.
I mean, you agreed to a contract when you joined ours.
It's fair. You did. Our rules.
Yeah.
Well, the rules page is different than signing a legally binding
I
contract.
mean, it's not because you just like if by accepting you accept our terms. Like by joining you.
Yeah. I assume
I
they
play-
aren't actually asking for a signed piece of paper from
No.
you.
Right.
No. But they
Who's gonna
try
say
to
that's automatically
lord it
safe?
over you and like, well, you did it. It's your fault, so we're gonna keep it and kick you out. And either ours or it's so. Just be careful out there.
Sounds stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it is stupid.
So. Art.
Art, and fluffy ponies.
I'll be back in just a moment.
Sounds good.
You do that. I'll continue drawing on this buttercup.
You wanna talk about what you're drawing?
Yeah. So a couple things. I'm just sort of going over like the structure of everything, and one of the things that I'm doing is adding more volume, like to the main, which I'm just experimenting with. Not everything has to be sort of concrete, but there's different ways that you can work out stuff, and it generally feels a little bit better if you make things exaggerated and large, like I'm doing now. I think one of the first things I did was the ear here, because it as it stands in the original picture is right over the eye, like it's even sort of overlapping with the eyebrow. Like the eyebrow here is actually going into where, like above the ear. So the ear is completely intruding there. Whereas the eye is a socket in the skull where a little ball is sitting. I know, gross, but it's how pony peepers work. So it's just a case of getting making sure to remember that there should be a gap here where the temple is. And even then, I've done it quite small, but it works enough for what we sort of see in the show, I guess. It's just remembering. It's just placing things in the head, in a way that sort of makes sense to a pony skull. And this isn't something that's super easy to pick up immediately, but it's definitely something to just keep in mind. And just look at people's art, look at show style, look at references. We always like to plug references. Just like
Delicious references.
it's not as easy as it sounds for beginners. To study references. I know I struggled a heck of a lot for a while to like be able to break down and understand. Like you can see the lines right in front of me, but how to translate them into a drawing, actually make them work, is a complete whole other thing. But it's more about learning sort of like how to adjust things. So like on your picture here, I took where your ear is and your eye is and everything, and I adjusted where the ear is based off of that. I decided it should be over here and bigger, and when you're drawing, you do a sketch and then it's like, okay, well, now I feel like this eye needs to be moved over or this eye needs to be bigger or something. And you're not always going to need to do that, but it will start to come more naturally to you the more you do it. And for a time, it's totally okay if you do struggle with proportions and sizing and having everything be balanced, if that makes any sense. I understand that you probably like struggle to exactly copy references down, but always try, because it can be very, very helpful to use them as opposed to just going blind. We definitely recommend using all kinds of references, especially if you can use multiple ones in a single picture. Spread your referencing over multiple pictures, because then you're getting like second opinions on like, oh, maybe this works or whatever.
Yeah, kind of getting that innate sense of how things are positioned and how to position things so it's appealing and also makes sense is one of the most difficult things I think about art. Like if you look over at Ali's drawing, she can sort of knock that out just because she's done a whole bunch of drawing already, based off references, based off all sorts of things, and got that sort of sense of
artist studies and show studies and real ball studies.
The thing that helps me the most is guidelines. I don't know if when I was first sketching, you see these little faint, like here, there's a line going down, and then I have 3 lines going across, and that kind of cuts up the head and gives me an idea where things go, the general position, so I'm not going blindly. And I find front facing like the hardest for me to get any kind of emotion in, to get that feel in, to get that depth in. It's something that I always struggle with, and I feel like
front facing is really
everybody
difficult.
struggles with. That's why we all go to 3/4 eventually.
I remember. I think we all remember it so clearly. I think it's such a universal thing. Like when you're starting out, and it's like to draw front view, is it because everything is just shapes? It's like, oh, this eye is like it's like a line that goes like this, and then like an oval in the middle, and like the chin is a V, and like everything is just like shapes, like simplistic shapes going on top of each other, and you're gradually refining how to draw them. But at first, everyone's gonna start out drawing like terrible anime pictures with like jagged tooth hair and stuff. Like it just happens. But then like to try and think about doing stuff like third quarter, it's like, how? I don't know how, like, it makes sense, because you're just, like, putting shapes on top of shapes, and you haven't begun to think about things in a 3D perspective. Which clearly you're a little bit further on than that, but it's always that sort of, like, starting point, and then gradually getting to learn how stuff makes sense in 3D, is the next sort of step. And then once you do get to that point, then suddenly, like doing stuff in third quarter actually becomes easier. Like I know, like if I had told like a 14-year-old me like drawing third quarter is eventually a lot easier than doing front view, be like, what are you talking about? But like,
right?
but like
I find
it is actually true, because it just becomes easier to like build the anatomy around everything else. Like you build the head and eye and everything around the last thing. So like you build everything around each other, and to do that in front view is not as easy, because everything's sort of going back to just shapes into the shapes, and it's less easy to build up like that 3D anatomy, which is why a lot of like more experienced artists struggle with it. It's not like I could draw a front view thing much better than my kid self could, but I can't draw a front view thing as well as I can draw a third quarter thing now.
I feel like I totally agree. I feel personally like I can do a
Gallons is
front.
banned front faces.
I'm all for Gallon. Ban front face. Our new leader, ban the front face. But yeah, I totally agree. I can draw a front face now, but I can't get nearly the amount of expression
Mm.
as I could from different angles of faces.
Yes.
It's funny that way. It's way just it's so robotic just because maybe the guidelines do make it a little robotic, and that'll happen a lot when you're learning and using guidelines. Sometimes it'll feel really robotic, but learning those guidelines can really help placement, and then once you learn that, you can get more exaggerated. You can it all grows. So don't be afraid of things turn out robotic. Like we're all still figuring things out, but guidelines and references, it all comes down to that.
Yes. It's all a learning experience, and part of that is learning how to learn.
Yes. Oh, very
Yeah.
much so.
At the beginning, it's all just like all I can understand how to do is put shapes on shapes, but then like I would say I don't know if this is for everyone, but I'm pretty sure it's at least somewhat universal. Is like when I was first started drawing, like my improvement was especially very very slow. Like I would study pictures as much. I had definitely had inspirations, and I do what I now call artist studies like a lot, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was just like, this artist is great. I want to be able to draw like them, and I just desperately tried to learn how they drew. And it didn't work. I struggled with it. I could not get things to look the way I wanted them to, and it wasn't. I didn't let it be disheartening, but it's like just trying to actually make shapes work was just, it felt like it was never going to get there, but each one was getting slowly better than the last, and that's sort of why I didn't really look at. But then as you get better, or at least with my experience, like one we've talked before about how you have your actual artistic skill and then you have your ability to break down and understand art. Both of those things are two core abilities that grow as you learn, and so you're developing your artistic skill, but then you're also developing your ability to understand art, and that's what sort of increases your ability to learn both from outside sources and from your own artwork, which is why you become more able to critically understand how you're drawing and what you're creating, so you can understand immediately how something is wrong and why it's wrong, where things need to be placed and such. Not perfectly, of course. You're always going to have a degree where you look back at a picture and go, "Oh, I can see where this is off." But it gets much better than when you're first starting out and you can't see anything at all, because that's a skill that you need to grow. And once it does start growing, you start being able to learn faster. And then I think there's a point where it just like speeds up so much that you just start exponentially growing, because you get into like a period where you're able to be very openly creative, and learn from other artists fairly easily, and from yourself fairly easily. And then you just start experimenting and cascading off of one thing after another, and just drawing all kinds of stuff and improving rapidly because you've gained the ability to. And then I think it slows down again, but only because you eventually refine yourself so much that you kind of know what you're doing and you've become comfortable, and then you enter like a third stage where you understand what you're doing a lot more, and you can make things look a lot nicer, and you're still learning and trying to grow, but it's more specific niche details that you're trying to learn rather than like a basic ability to draw, if that makes sense.
Word.
Many words, I'm sorry for rambling.
No, it's good. It's like I can't add more to that. It's perfect.
Shall we move on to the next one?
Sounds good.
Yeah, hope you keep drawing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Our next one is let's do the bottom left-hand corner.
All
Bottom
right.
left.
Yeah. So this is by I am Kitty 08 or 0187. I tried a non-violent drawing today, came up with this. Personally, I don't see anything wrong, but in case, I want to know what you guys do.
I wonder if the first 1086 kitties drew as passionate smooches as you do.
Smooch.
I think the thing that I see wrong is right now it looks like she is actually just eating his face.
Yeah. Like, kisses are hard, though.
They
They're
are.
so hard to draw.
Because they're like mouths and
Ponies.
blah, 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 blah.
Ponies have the snouts in the way, so I think ponies need to either bend their heads upwards or like tilt. I think the usual thing is to tilt the snout.
Yeah.
Like either, like the heads have to sort of go in either direction so they can sort of balance against each other, and access the bottom of the snout. Otherwise, they're just gonna nose poop. It's the downside of being a pony, but the
Can't have dual
beautiful snakes are also a
unicorns
plus.
doing it.
See, I'm gonna be the naysayer. Oh, watch out! I'm coming in. I'm okay with this kiss. It's a very simplistic, like 2D style smooch where you have like that slight overlap. Sure,
Yeah.
maybe some of the muzzle could come back a bit, like this front muzzle here, but having a slight overlap like that,
Hmm.
and
Like,
maybe
I don't think it's bad at all. I think, especially with your style, it works very well.
You know what it is? I think it's because you have the one horse over here having such a big overlap, and this one doesn't have any of the overlap at all. Like maybe if you like almost like gave them a second to overlap and have like a little like smoochy smooch.
Yeah, I think that would fix a little of the nom nom.
Yeah, I think that's why the nom feeling's happening.
I mean, if you gain any insight on doing kisses, and hit me up. Not with a kiss, with art knowledge on how to draw kisses.
I think turning the head would be my preference to solving it, but reducing the muzzle, sure.
And there are ways you can make it work without that as well.
Yeah, Maze brings up a good thing is we see them both directly from the side, where like one of them should probably be like faced a little bit more away from the camera, and one a little bit closer.
So, other issue I'm seeing is you have dropped a wing on possibly both horses, depending on how you want to design your wings. But it's even on birds when they're like flapping, their wings, even from a side angle, they aren't perfect, especially if they're doing weird things like, changing angles and directions and stuff.
I think most of the time they're going to be asymmetrical just because of wind currents, and they've got to be balanced, even if they're just like pew, out of the sky and like plummeting, like to dive on something. They're still going to be like balancing in the wind currents going down.
Yeah. So I think just giving an idea that there's another wing back there. Your wing shape, it's okay. They're a little odd, just because how much they grow towards the end, but I understand what you're going for. It might.
Can you imagine those wings folded up on those?
No, I can't. I actually cannot.
Maybe this is what Flurry Heart will look like.
My guess is either that's the size of their wings, or they're going for one of those like close-up angles where the wings are so outstretched, they're so big to us, but the ponies are smaller.
Right. Yep.
Like, it's, like,
could be.
them.
I think they also have like the Andy Price magic wing size changing going on.
A few suggestions to try and alter this to bring it maybe a bit more in line to what we're seeing. Widen out the start of it, so make this flare a little less jaunting.
And like how especially how it connects to the body. Right now it's so small connected to the body. Maybe give it a little more meat. I know the show style has them really tiny, but you're not doing show style. You're doing, I feel, a more horsey style. So I think giving that bigger meat on like where they start is really beneficial. Just sell that like horse wing.
And if you want to have them how they are, that's absolutely fine. But I think it also might be worth experimenting with just like balancing it out a bit. So like add a bit of like volume to the beginning part, as you guys were saying, and then maybe also try doing the folded part a little bit smaller and just balance them a little bit so that they're a little bit more uniform. It doesn't have to be completely like one size, of course. You don't have to reduce it a whole lot, but just like sometimes when things are a little bit pushed to extreme, just like pushing them back a little towards each other can work very well.
I think the same thing goes for the back legs as far as the disappearing act that's going on. I think I see a bit. I'm not even sure if that's supposed to be the hip here, because I see a line going across there, but it would be too high for the angle they're on to make sense for a hip. And if she has her leg like curled up where it's doing this, and then like that or something, even that doesn't quite make sense for that line. So MC Labs is saying, I would suggest possibly drawing the wing bones. You can find those on our sideboard guides. They'll have some information on it. I think of them as arms because the bones are knowledge. I don't even know how to say that word. Someone else say that word for me.
What?
Analogous.
What?
Analogous. Thank you, buddy. My brain was falling on the G. This will help with the shape and also help with the feather placement. Doing this made all the difference for wings in my own drawings. Tips from MC Labs.
Yeah, and it's very true. They are little hands.
Hmm. For me, it's always good to look at analogous anatomy, seeing like how do hooves differ from arms and how are they similar and that sort of stuff. It really helps when trying to draw things.
I absolutely support that.
I would recommend something that stands out to me is these front hooves. At the moment, they're all sharing the same angles. They're all sharing the same pose. Changing some of them up, having some of them extend a bit more, would just add a little bit more of a dynamic feeling to the pose and make it feel a little bit more real and interesting.
That's a cool picture.
Bat finger is.
Alright, shall we move on to our last picture in this list?
Sounds good.
Alright, it is a nerdy book horse. This is by Gourd Animations. I've been trying to learn to paint for the last month or so. I've been sketching characters for all my life, but yearn to add colors to the background to the mix. Any and all critique is welcome. First of all, lovely horse. Done some really
I love it.
fun, sort of like oil color or oil painting coloring.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, if you're watching this video and haven't checked your post, Gallon gave really great critique on it. So also read theirs before or after you watch this video.
During. Just do both at the same time.
Oh god, all the information, just absorb it.
So I'm just not going to bother reiterating what Gallon said about the ears, the wings, and refining shapes with a bit more of the shading, which is basically the gist of what could be done to improve this one.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to understand what's going on over here. I
It's a
think
lamp.
it's like a lantern, but like
Yeah,
I don't know what's happening with this like shadow.
Yeah,
and
so
the
I
shelf.
think something that would help with that a little bit is just pulling because the shadow continues directly on, it's a little bit confusing. So doing something like this.
I think it's because the shade from like the tone from like the front of the shelf and the top of the shelf are so like the same, but they need to be different.
Yeah.
And yeah, breaking up the shape like Gallon just sorry, that Pixie just did can help a lot.
And I
Yeah,
think
it's pretty much just that tangent makes things a little bit confusing. It makes it feel like this whole thing is like one shape.
Yeah, tangents are enemy.
Pew pew.
Pew pew.
I do think I would turn the face down a bit more. I couldn't imagine that'd be a comfortable way to read a book. Like you're
She's
looking
not
at it on the
looking at
ground.
book either. Looks like she's looking like off this way.
Yeah.
She could be floating the book. It's magic.
Yeah, she could be. I think might be a way to also make the eye just. That was a bad idea.
We did see her in the library quite often with pillows and that
There we go.
propping up books.
Yeah, LD's point still stands is that like either have her like laying down over the book so we just see the top of the head. Like obviously not in this picture. I wouldn't say redraw the entire concept of your picture and like lose what you've done on this already lovely face. Like or do what LD said and have the book or whoever it was this Pixie I think said it, have the book floating. Books are hard to draw. Leave me alone.
They are indeed.
I actually
Affiliate
got a on Clip Studio. Yeah, in Clip Studio, I actually got like a three. I found a 3D model of a book on the asset store, so I use that as a reference.
Nice. Bless Clip.
Clip Studio has such great like tools and resources.
Maze in our check brings up a good point. So this looks like a couch cushion, but there's a lot of hard edges going on. You know, she wants to be comfy. She wants to be, you know, in soft thing. Like you could have this cushion almost like coming up against her as she's sitting in on it. You know, have the weight. I need a color drop. Burp.
You're
Have her
doing it
sink
properly.
in a bit. It's a nice soft, cushy, and then you can even have it like you know, you guys are gonna laugh at me, but a really great reference for especially, I mean, it might only be great for top-down view, but
I'm gonna say Dakimaras.
I'm gonna say Dockies. They have cushion shadows all the time, and you can learn a lot. It doesn't have to be the exact same, you know, exact pose or exact top-down view, but you can learn and see how when where the cushions, you know, bulge in, where the shadows happen, where, you know, how a part of the body laying on something has a you know, curved shadow coming out from under it. You can use that stuff to help you. Like
Yeah,
crazy how everywhere can like teach you something.
and
You'll
don't
find a way
forget.
to apply it.
Yeah, and don't forget that like as you sit down on a soft thing like a pillow, it's gonna bend and stretch under the weight. If you ever sat on a beanbag chair, you know what I'm talking about and how hard it is to get up because like you just sink into it. Like if you sit on a pillow, it's gonna squash all of the. I need a different color. Like all of the weight is being as I've drawn these white arrows pointing down to like where like the weight of her is pressing. All of the weight, the substance of the pillow is being pushed out this way, and this way. So and obviously inwards towards where her weight is resting. So that's why it's going to dip. It's going to dip in towards the sides and come outwards towards the sort of thicker parts, which she's pressing all that weight outwards to. Like because pillows have contents, right? They're not just like a solid marshmallow. Like they have a bad example. But it's still a solid shape. They have stuff inside them. And so that stuff's going to be pushed around as you sit on it. So that's what I'm talking about, basically, with stuff being moved around. These yellow arrows. And I'm talking about this because it's something that I've drawn pillows plenty of times and characters resting on them, and like when I was like years ago, I'd always draw the pillows really flat, and I sort of learned to realize that like when you like plop your head against the pillow, it's gonna smush into the pillow and smush the pillow around your head and push all the contents outwards to make it all fat and fluffy around your head, and that's where like the comfortable support comes from. Yeah, well, Ali's drawing is very nice, doing those like crease lines. But yeah, we all need some nice pillow comfort.
Pony.
Ponies and pillows.
And I believe that is our last image for the night.
It is. How'd you know?
I counted.
I think Alan said something about fixing up their drawing and uploading.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice. They're waiting for internet. Come on, internet. I wanna
Shake
see.
it. Shake the internet.
It was doing this to me earlier, and now it's doing it to Galen.
Internet, if you
Me.
work, I'll give you a cookie.
And then Galen will give you two. He's the cookie pony.
And then I will tax the cookie.
The zombie tax.
Just gonna eat cookies until the internet. Let's see. You could be enjoying this yummy custard cream.
Cookie.
I think didn't Galen say they had poor connection last time when they were trying to watch the stream, or was that someone else?
That was
I
Galen.
believe that's Alan, yeah.
It's like an eighth of the people who try and do more than one thing at a time.
Done getting the link.
Oh, another thing actually for the Twilight is there's not actually many highlights on the pillow from the lamp. That could do some fixing.
Internet doesn't. How are you communicating? Are you just sending packets via pigeons?
Yep.
The pigeons fly to another country, type on a keyboard with their little talons.
Yeah, there we go.
If I could recommend something, this lamp is like super duper yellow. It could help to like look at adding a bit more yellow in the places that are sort of closer to it. So
Especially because actually come to think of it, since you said that, the light on the shelves and on Twilight and on the pillow and the book and the floor and everything is a white light. Like, apart from the bird in the background, we're hearing a bird, but we're seeing that the light cast and everything is quite clearly it's a white light. It's clearly not like a yellow toned light.
You
So
see
you
it
can make
really, especially on her nose.
yeah.
Really white light on her nose.
Yeah. So like having the light turned, you could like have a more of a yellow tone on everything, or have the lantern itself give off a more white light, and that would balance it a bit more.
What I did for the cushion there, when I quick slapped on like gentle highlights, I pretty much color picked the color of your cushion. Took my color wheel, moved it slightly towards yellow, so it was more in the reddish orange area, and then I futzed with the value a bit and made it a more brighter color, less saturated, but more value. Is it lower value that goes towards black? I'm going towards white, and I'm going for less saturated. So you still get the yellow, but it's not white. So that's a little pop, like a little orangey pop.
Yeah, like where it goes from here on the front of her coat to like her back. There's definitely like the more warm tone and the cool tone, but just pushing it a little bit, especially like in the places closest to the light. It's good.
Good catch, yeah.
So, Gallon, liking the new picture. I haven't stuck it on the canvas. It just looks like changes to Sad Horse.
They moved the eye.
Yeah.
And it turned out really good.
Change some of the highlighting too. Just minorly.
I see they changed the mane a little bit, like the shape.
Yeah, I like the changes. The picture looks more pointed now.
Oh, and they got like the halo. They did the halo.
Maybe.
It's really nice.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd spend much more time modifying anything.
Oh, all those changes are lovely. That looks good.
All right.
I love those extra bits of shading around the back of her ear and back and everything. That looks good.
Anyone else have any questions, or do you have any questions in particular there, Gallon? Maybe I'm just crazy.
Give us all the odd questions. Give us an essay.
An essay?
Satisfied and satiated. All right, then let's call it a day. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again next week.
Woo!
Woo.
Have a good one.
Yes.
Oh man, you just hop into the Ghibli Gibbity. Yeah, just love what they do. They make some great videos.
It's so good.
Googly.
Googly.
All right.
Googly the Ghibli.
Gibbity.
We should have movie nights and watch Ghibli movies.
You just gotta watch a highlight reel of all their sexy food animations.
Yes. Once and sprayed it away.
Also, Ali